Welcome to the last hurrah, the final Danganronpa content asterisk, probably, on the channel/stream, the tier lists. Now, right now, I only have two tier lists that we have right here. I have the characters one and the chapters one. And I don't know what else I would possibly rank. That's all that the game has, of course. But anyway, we'll to this video slash segment. I don't know. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll probably get them all at some point. But we'll start with the chapters because I think it's a good summary of the whole game, right? I'll just do it in the order presented, and also because I need to remind myself for it. I need like the wiki on the side to double check, like, okay, how does this whole business work? So we'll be doing that. Okay. Usually I tend to modify. I'll let these stand as tiers. I think it's perfectly fine. So, chapter 1-1 of Danganronpa 1, Super Danganronpa, whatever, Trigger Happy Havoc in English, whatever you want to call it, right? So, how does it begin? I'm obviously ignoring all the prologues and epilogues, or I'm attaching them to the chapters that they precede or post-seed. That's not a word, but I know what I'm trying to say. So, quick summary. Makoto wakes up in his room. Well, first off, the prologue, which I'll include in chapter 1, because it only makes sense to do so. He shows up, he's going to school, and this is more for me than for you, and you don't need the synopsis, right? But I'm doing it so that I remember. He's been selected as the lucky student. Yippee. He goes to school, steps in because he's early, and then lo and behold, the world swirls, and he wakes up in the random classroom killing game type situation, right? He is introduced to everybody, so on and so forth. Everybody's introduced to him, right? And then him and Sayaka have this back and forth. They have a bit of a connection. She takes that sword, as I remember, and Sayaka gets suspicious, gets a bit paranoid. Something like this, right? And then we go to Makoto's room. Turns out, oh no, Sayaka's dead. Obviously we know 11037, the infamous numbers, right? That's where it all comes together. Now, in terms of the motives in this chapter were the videos, right, of what was the personal drives of everyone. And I think in this scenario, it was more so that Sayaka was trying to kill someone and Leon was stupid enough to get involved with it, but he defended himself, but then was like, this is a good opportunity, and took the opportunity to kill her. Something like that, right? And then we have to go ahead and show everybody, okay, we switched rooms because she told us. The crystal ball was the way that we know it was him because he was the only one. It was the ultimate baseball pro. Anyway, all things considered, I think, all things considered, it's one of these two. It's certainly it's not great. I think that goes a step too far. But if I have to adjust my expectations, like within the bounds of this game and what the peaks and troughs of the game itself has to offer, I think it's probably literally just smack bang in the middle, right? We sort of get the inkling that Sayaka's going a little bit crazy. She's sort of involving herself in a bout of dangerousness that ends up in sort of her setting the stage for this, right? And I think, as Makoto's journey as the ultimate sort of hope and puzzle solving. It's especially good because we are immediately the suspect, which I think is a classic, and it's a bit of a shame that the later games pretty much don't do this. That at least once we, as the main character, are accused of being the guy who did it, right? And so having to clear our name and having to believe, having to have hope, etc., etc., as well as it's just the introduction to the entire franchise. I think I have to put it right there. And 11037, I think people probably meme on it a lot, but if you're the original Japanese, because it's 11037 in the original Japanese, it would take you a bit longer. Obviously, it would still be obvious, I think, but to see that it's Leon upside down if you're in Japan and you speak Japanese, and English is like a secondary option for you. So in that sense, I think it's in fact the humor value of it is very valuable to me. So I think it goes smack bang in the middle. We might reshuffle stuff later on. Let's see. Anyway, chapter 2 of the first game. Right? Post-trial discussion, second chapter begins. The second floor opens up and we find the gym and the pool and everything, and this is the one about Chihiro, and we have like the discussion about Chihiro girl or guy type situation, right? Which, I mean, you can have your thoughts on that. I wouldn't besmirch you. You're entitled to rate it highly or lower. That's not how you conjugate those words. As a result of how you feel about that, I like. It's interesting, and I don't know enough to really unpack it. But I think you can take what you want from it. What do I think? Well, it's tough, right? I think, like, from what the game gives us, at least, the idea is that Chihiro was, like, naturally feminine in, like, stature and build, and so ended up, like, dressing that way and living that way, but he wanted to actually, like, work out and build muscle or something like that. I mean, you can be comfortable in your identity regardless, I think, is my conclusion, so I don't think it matters so much. But regardless, that was one of the points of contention in, like, the logic of this trial, as well as a bunch of other stuff, right? But this is also where we find the laptop in the library, as well as the letter. So this is, again, the start of, like, unraveling the mystery. We get a bit of secret, sort of spicy information. And it's, me and Kyoko doing a little bit of investigations here and there, right? And then I forget what Monokuma's motive is in this one. What is Monokuma's motive here? Let me double check this. Chapter 1 is like the Oh yeah, it's the memories and secrets thing. Right, I remember this actually. Yes. So this is like, I'll expose your most private secret to the world or whatever, right? And this was actually where, like, Chihiro's secret was that he was actually a guy. That was the secret. And then Mondo, in this case, his secret was like that it was that he killed his brother. Or it was weird, the facts were sort of like he was involved in the killing of his brother. He may have been negligently responsible for the killing of his brother, which I think is important. But I guess the important fact is that he thinks that he was sort of responsible, and nobody really thinks that that's the case, but that's how he ended up being, like, the gang leader. And it would basically ruin everything that he had try to build, and he wouldn't be able to like face the world, right? That's the point of it. And so I think that was itself was fine, but he was more, because he was entrusted, Chihiro trusted him to like guide him, and Chihiro told him the secret and was that I want to face my, you know, my reality. I want to move forward. I want to move past this. And he was like, he broke when he was witnessing somebody with such a close secret, trusting it to him and wanting to move forward, which I think is actually pretty good. And I think what Byakuya does to fuck with everything here is also very good. So I'm willing to put 1-2 in like a pretty top shelf. Like, it's pretty good. I think it's above average, all things considered, right? If you compare it to the previous one, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of puzzles and trickiness, right? And just like because you spend half the trial basically deconstructing Byakuya's tomfoolery, which is I think a lot of fun. Right? Oh yeah, and this wasn't this also the broken handbook, like me and the boys in the sauna situation? Something like this, right? But yeah, I think it's pretty good, and I was a fan of it all. The whole what do you call it? Byakuya. This is where I started really liking Byakuya, you know? This is why later on you might see him top shelf. Okay, chapter 3. At the beginning of chapter 3, we get the photo of everyone like who was dead smiling. This is another sort of unraveling of the secrets. Now that I'm thinking about this, the first game was actually very good. Maybe better than the second game, let's be honest. We'll talk about this later. I guess we can sort of do averages after that, right? Okay. So, what happens? Everyone's happy. Oh yeah, Genocider. The Genocider, it was relevant in the previous chapter, but because that was what he did, right? He dressed it up like one of those murders, and we had to disassemble that. So that was fun. Anyway, we find Alter Ego in this, and talk to Grok GPT. And this one, the Robo Justice. Oh god, I remember this Robo Justice. This one was the money, right? Yeah. The big money. And then she wanted to... Celeste did this because she wanted to own the castle, although I'm getting ahead of myself here. Anyway. So this was the double kill. Which was what? Hifumi and somebody else was killed. Oh yeah, Taka, right? Taka, I remember. This one was okay. The Robo Justice bit was kind of an annoyance, I think. The motive was also like fine. It was sort of neither here nor there, right? This one I don't find my... Let me see if I can... get a better synopsis of this shit. Sorry, I'm just browsing some very random and interesting Wikipedia stuff. Anyway, let me get back to this shit. Oh yeah, and this was also the alter ego thing. Okay, never mind. I remembered why I don't like this one that much. The fact that the origin for the beef and what Celeste took advantage of, and also the money, all of it is sort of right? Them fighting over ChatGPT, this modern take on this is pretty bad. Though. I don't want to just like make it seem pointless, but also the fact that they were literally talking to like the AI robot, and then they fought over it to such a degree that this was what like created a rift is ridiculous. I think it's beyond the pale for me, just for me, and it also wasted our time. It's not the worst, but it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. Anyway, chapter 4. Oh yeah, chapter 4 is Sakura fighting the mastermind situation, right? And then she ended her own life. This chapter, I think, was great. The only thing preventing it from being here is my irritation at Yasuhiro for being insanely pointless. Who, like, he attacked her for absolutely no reason, and nobody even criticized him for it, which pissed me off so much that I can't put this any higher, despite the fact that it was like emotional, poetic, it brought everyone together, it did so many things, but that one thing pissed me off so bad that I can't in good faith put it any higher. I think that's where my vibes are, right? I also thought that it was Asahina for a while, but I couldn't figure out what she could have done with all that, right? Oh yeah, and this is where we also lie to Kyoko, which hurts my soul, but, you know, whatever. We move on. Right. Dude. So it was a very elaborate, like, message of everything, like, the investigation. There was a lot to do in this one, I think. It was a lot of... And I think they do a lot with it as well. Like, this is the, like, catalyst for what happens in the rest of the story, I think. This is what we finally break free of the, like, the motive system and everything, and, like, go beyond the base level, I think. And I think coming to the conclusion that she ended her own life is, like, it's a break from the pattern of the game itself, and I think it's a lot of fun. Oh yeah, this one, chapter 5. There's nowhere that they just summarize the chapters, man. There's nowhere. And it's been so long, I've literally forgotten. By so long, I mean like 2 months. But I forget things 2 months ago quicker than I forget things that were years ago, because if I remember it from years ago, it means it really, really mattered to me. Anyway, this is where we go to the top floor. The mystery body, the mystery rooms and everything. The hand, the Junko hand that we learn is Junko's hand later on or whatever. And then the water and everything, the dismantled Monokuma, all that stuff. The titanium arrows. Oh yeah, and this is the this is when we have to trust Kyoko, and not trusting Kyoko ends up with a bad ending. Which I think this is like, this having to trust Kyoko at the end here puts this in like outstanding tier, especially because this is where the game itself unravels, in my opinion. This is where, like, I'm sorry if I'm seeming pretty distracted in this, by the way. It's literally, I'm remembering it as I'm saying it, which is not a very good way to do this thing. But this is where, like, the limits of the game are reached, and we finally, through trusting each other, me and Kyoko, I guess Makoto and Kyoko, but I am Makoto, I'm lucky, finally break through, right? And also this is where Monokuma himself, or herself, I suppose, has to lie and, like, cheat, in a manner of speaking, right? This is where things get crazy. But anyway, chapter 6. The important reason we get, at the end of chapter 5, of course, we get executed, but Alter Ego comes in and saves us. Now it's all coming back, right? And then now, chapter 6 is when we start to unravel all of, like, Kyoko's backstory, her and her father, how she, you know, he may have been protecting her the whole time, how we were all here before. Like, this is where we finally learn, like, that our memories are gone, that we were all here. Right? The data lab, the Monokuma control room, the Mukuro information, right? Everyone else getting stuff, like photos without themselves or whatever, to make everyone suspicious. This is like Monokuma sussing us out. Also, the Genocide Jack info, the interview DVDs, right? This is when this is the final, like, elements of the outside story, the amnesia, the memories, right? And the ultimate hope as well. Right? And then we finally have hope to live our lives, despite the fact that we learn about the outside world, we learn about the tragedy, we learn about everything. I think this is like, the ending of this game is so good, because you learn so much so quickly, that explains so much so quickly, that I think it's really hard to beat it, especially in, like, the final trial, when we sort of bring out Junko and absolutely cook her, you know? Part of her, like, wants to be involved in this manner, in a manner of speaking, right? This is like her choice. She wanted to lose, to feel despair, etc. But I don't know. At this point, like, the pretty much only me, I guess Makoto, Byakuya, and Kyoko are, like, heavily involved. Toko just sort of Genocide Jack involved. Yasuhiro thankfully doesn't say much, as well as Asahino. Like, the meaningless characters keep being meaningless, and then the meaningful characters take up, more space. Byakuya gets to confront the fact that this also, when Byakuya's arc is like created, right? Is that we believe? Well, it's actually at the end of here, to remember correctly. But this is where it's actualized. This is where he believes in us. This is where he, in his own way, he has hope, right? And I think that, like, the game really takes a leap in here. And now that I'm really remembering it, the first game doesn't actually... It has a lot of bad characters, but the actual cases themselves are pretty good. It's just that you get interrupted by Yasuhiro saying some bullshit, and, like, the trials and the pacing of them occasionally drags on a bit. But I think as a plot, it's much more concise and directed. If it is a little back heavy, that's fine. Like, that's okay. But I think that's my chapter, my first game one. Right? So now, moving on to the other game. Right. Game 2, Chapter 2-1. As I'm here, right? So, the beginning of this game, which I'll include in the first chapter because I don't think it's really fair to do it otherwise, right? Is everyone's, happy, having a good old time in the island with Usami, and then shock horror, we can't leave or whatever, right? We have no memory of it. Why are we here? The 16 students in this version. And then Monokuma shows up, splits her in half, and is like, we're doing the killing game thing again, right? But it drags on for quite a while. The pacing of this is really slow. And then, what else? We have to discover all that stuff on the island. And then we have Imposter Byakuya, aka Byakuya, for hour 6, right? And then, because Byakuya, in this case, takes charge and leads the squad, says, no one's gonna die. I will prevent everyone from dying, of course, setting his own death flag, right? And here we have the, beginning of Nagito insanely aura farming Kumaeda moment, right? How he starts the what do you call it? How he was basically intending to kill and then told Teruteru and everything, right? Because he was planning the murder. And how Imposter, aka Byakuya, saw that and stopped him, basically taking his place. This chapter is straight up mediocre because I don't care about... Teruteru's motive is pretty weak. He was literally concerned with the well-being of his mother. Yeah, okay, buddy, you're concerned with the well-being of your mother, buddy. Think about the fucking situation you're in right now. You just I don't think it jumps from that to kill immediately, right? Not in the same way that the videos did in the first one, which is, it's weak, but it's certainly better. It's not quite disappointing, but it drags on. The only good thing about this chapter is, I guess I'll rank them in here as well. I think the ending is better, and that order is fine. I'm not. 1-3 is kind of an annoyance. I think 2-1 here is a lot better. But like Nugget saves this chapter basically by being interesting and having interesting characters and character like design and motives. Everybody else is literally just fucking about, you know, apart from like people who aren't that involved yet and become more involved later in the game, right? But I don't give a shit about Teru. I don't give a like his killing reason is not important enough to me, and Imposter Byakuya dying immediately basically made us ask, like they asked questions that were never answered. Why was he Byakuya? Why was the imposter guy Byakuya? I have no fucking idea. I don't think the game ever told us. That was just what he was. Okay, cool. Like, I don't care, basically, is my assessment. Now, is it bad? Is it disappointing? I don't think it's disappointing. But I do think it's mediocre. It's certain, as an introduction, it's long, it's quite boring at times. Even if it's the start, right? Anyway. Let's move forwards. And Hajime is still kind of just like a puppet for your sake. Oh yeah, and this was like the I was taking a shit situation and Peko being constipated type shit. Like, all of that was so pointless. It took so long, I just stopped caring. At some point. Iron Skewer. Okay, buddy. Anyway. Purchasing the man's nut, huh? Things I didn't know. Anyway, so that was the memory motive. Anyway, the motive was the Twilight. This one was the Twilight Syndrome one, right? Which this I remember was actually pretty much brilliant. It was very well done. This was the Peko and Kuzuryu case, right? Where Koizumi gets killed in the beach house or whatever, and the back and forth was between Saionji and Kuzuryu, I believe, if I remember correctly, as to who it could have been situation, right? Let me double check all this. And then this one was the game, the like story game within the game, which I think was also just a lot of fun. The emotional ending of the chapter, which caused Kuzuryu to have his turn, right? To start trusting everyone, to start actually participating and being involved and being a character, basically. Do I think it's as good as the reveals? Actually, it may be better than 1.5. 1.5 is really good. 1.5 is really quite good. But it's certainly, I think this is like some of the best. As a pure chapter, I think it's very, very good. And also the back and forth that it has you do, sort of like wondering who could it be, who couldn't it be, keeping you on edge, being like, oh, Saionji was there, she was in the place. No, she wasn't in the place. That's not her gummy of choice, right? Making one small mistake here and there, like considering all the small options. Who could have escaped through the window, right? How was the escape done? What was the reasoning for the killing and everything else, right? I think all of it coming to a head in this chapter. It makes it very, very effective. And also it ends up actually mattering to character development, which is like another thing, right? Not only is the killing well written and the puzzle pretty well written, especially by this game series standards, but it matters for the development of the characters, which is another very important, a relevant thing. And the fake out that they do with the serial killer reference, they had me like this close to being tilted at the game, but then they did like the gamble and it worked. They pulled it back. It was fun. Anyway, This one was the movie, right? Oh no, this was the despair disease. Despair disease. This chapter I think was quite annoying, all things considered. It may even be disappointing to you. Actually, you know, I'm gonna put this one in disappointing because I think they could have done such a better job and they fucking ruined, and I know that they didn't ruin it because this is actually the whole point, and it wraps around completely, right? It wraps around fully because it was Tsumiki did it because she had the disease and the disease made her remember, and she remembered that she was rammed of despair. So that part of her came forwards again and she did all this shit. But I can't help but think they just sort of went like, okay, we're gonna like. It wasn't very. It's a very like gamble, like retrospect type of thing, in the sense that if you really want to believe that this is good, you need the full follow through of the game to land, and then but it doesn't change the fact that it kind of sucks in the moment, right? Even if it's better later on, I can't just help. That's why it's disappointing to me, is that I can't help but wonder, was there not a better way to do this? It felt like it was such a well designed, like, okay, like the puzzle was good, and then the finishing blow was very like, really, this is the answer to all of these interesting questions. It deadass did not feel like that, right? But anyway, and also Ibuki did not need to die, but you know, not that most people ever ended up needing to die. Yeah, what I remember thinking at the time of this is it would be so much more interesting for somebody to have manipulated like the people Ibuki into hanging herself, or killing Sayonji and hanging herself would just be so much more interesting than the actual answer, which was she strangled her. And then, by the way, in this chapter, they just don't even analyze Sayonji's murder. They just go like, yep, she died. There was a thing in her coat. That they basically only answer the question, how did she get there? They don't even like cause of death her, really anything. Which, like, I mean, not that you need to, but it also just felt weird. And it just felt like a wasted opportunity and a fumble. Like, I felt like they did this, they meaning Kodaka / whoever was in the writer's room in this situation. They basically were like hoping that this would pay off once you learnt about the true reality of the world, which I don't think it does. Okay, 2-4, the Funhouse. I'm gonna say disappointing, but better than 2-3. Maybe not better, actually a little bit better. I think it was at least, this one was another sort of bit of reality, right? A little bit of reality in some manner of speaking, right? Nekomaru dies. It was a pretty interesting way of killing him, and relatively justified. You know what? I guess I'll put it as mediocre, because actually it's not as bad as 2-3, because at least this one makes sense in the universe, right? Gundam killed him because they were literally trapped and they were not being fed. And his only mistake was not knowing that his room was soundproof. If that, and getting unlucky with timing. And also, it's implied that this is Nekomaru's only good thing he ever does as a character, by the way. Also, this was the one at the end of this one, or at the beginning of this one. One of the two, I forget whether it was here or here, where he sacrifices himself for, I think it was here, right? Because he comes back at the end of this. he just sacrificed. Akane fights Monokuma for no reason, which is okay. That's her bit. And Nekomaru, for even less of a reason, sacrifices himself for her sake. Like, it just made no sense. Waste of two characters that are wasting our time. Waste our time even further. Pissed me off the real bad. Real bad. Anyways, the starvation. And I think this is also like where, as I was saying, Nekomaru does his only good thing and basically like agrees to fight. And it's implied, I think. Not, I'm gonna assume that this is implied, even though like it wasn't very obvious. I think it was sort of suggested, right? That this is what do you call it? Both of them were sort of willing to sacrifice themselves in the sense that even if they got out, they may have let everyone know. Like, they were okay with being discovered, basically, because they knew that everyone needed to, like, if everyone wanted to be fed again, then someone would have to die. Like, they accepted the situation. So that was the only redeeming factor. But apart from that, I just couldn't bring... I don't care about Gundam. I don't care about Nekomaru. They never gave me a reason to care about either of them. And it's just a little laborious this far into the game as well. To get the 2-4 and to just not get any like fragments of interesting lore like at all, it took so like they. I'll admit 1.5 and 1.6 is when you basically get lore dumped about what's really happening in the first game, right? But at the end, like you get drip fed information and like photos here and like interesting things get told to you that suggest stuff, right? You get to theorize. Here we literally just like. All the questions that they asked, some of them which never got answered, by the way, like, it's just so ass. I don't know. It's so nothing to me. But anyway, let's move on to chapter 5, which was Nagito's self-ending and gamble to get the imposter, which is, I think, it may be peak, I'm afraid. Right. Let me just make sure I have this right, because I think it may be peak. Because Nagito is basically doing the only interesting things the entire time, right? He literally uses his lucky status to get Chiaki. And then, you know, simultaneously we're like betrayed by Chiaki, but also we didn't realize that we were the baddies all along type situation, right? And I think like the back and forth emotionally comes to a head. It sets up the end of the game pretty well as well. His motive for this is perfect because he learnt about like who he was, and so it was like, I'm literally horrified and disgusted. I'm gonna end my own life and try it, because his motive here was not to find the imposter. He was trying to get the imposter to like survive, so and all of us to die because we were the remnants of despair, as he learned, right? So which he learned through the book that he got here, which he disposed of beforehand to prevent any funny business. And at this point as well, like Nagito is just throughout everything that he does in here, like the bomb plot and everything, his whole motivations and his whole character, like he takes the game over here for great reason. Him and Chiaki, the two of the greatest characters, right? Finally stop wasting time with all this like meaningless nonsense and get to something interesting. And it's sort of I don't know how else to say it. The game, it picks up a lot, and if only this kind of thing could have happened a bit earlier, maybe, then the game's pacing might not have been so screwed up, right? But anyway, and then her sort of graciously accepting it and everything, the allying with the Future Foundation / World Ender, all of that, Monokuma lying to us, etc., right? Oh yeah, and 2-6 is incredible. It's just because I love what it does, right? The glitchiness, the game within a game, the full insane reveal, the back and forth, the fact that you're in a simulation, the fact that you're in the Remnants of Despair, the fact that like you literally learn everything. The end of, what do you call it, Hajime, learning everything about Hajime, because for literally 5 chapters he is nobody, and then eventually he is everybody, basically speaking, right? And then we choose to believe in creating a new future. Everybody from the trio of characters from the previous game come back. Like, it is basically, it's what you would do if you were writing this. It's like if you told like a 14-year-old, like, I'm 14 and this is deep, like, fanfic writer, to create something awesome as fuck, and you let yourself enjoy it, this is what would happen. The Junko, the like fake Junko or real Junko, like alter ego Junko battle, it's just all so good. It's a pity that it takes so long to get here, right? That's my only problem, I think. And I think a lot of people probably have a problem with this, because if you compare it to, for instance, 1516 here, these are very grounded in quotation marks, grounded for the scale of what they are, right? It's not fake at all. You're actually uncovering a mystery in the real world and like where you are, right? Whereas in here, it's sort of, oh, guess what? Everything is a lie, but like, it's kind of, some people, I can understand why some people would have a problem with it and go, it's like saying it was all a dream, right? But I think it attempts to justify, like, for instance, it tries to explain, imposter Byakuya's like motives here. It also this one just stands on its own. It doesn't really matter what was going on with all that. But here, like, she's remembered despair. It's something we learn here as well. Here, it's again not relevant, but they do a little bit of like rewriting history to try and make it make sense. And I think when I was playing it, I even went so far as to say, like, the fact that it was so boring and repetitive in a manner of like, we've done this before, works in part in like a meta analysis level. Like, why does it feel like we've done this before? Because it is a game with, oh, don't go back up there, buddy. It's a game within a game. So I think that's like it's very cool. It's cool as fuck. It doesn't redeem like the bottom heavy thing here, I guess so. I don't know. I don't think it does, insofar as like, it's not so much better than the ending of the first game to warrant it else. But also, like, all of these are very good. This is the why it's so hard for me to evaluate the Goodbye Despair, right? Because it has 3 cases, arguably, which are brilliant and very well done, and take you on big rides and, leave you with questions and answers, and leave you with, like, characters that are impacted and changed as a result, right? But then you have these 3, which are just wastes of time, and you sort of wonder, okay, like, how do you evaluate something that's so up and down? Meanwhile, I think the first game takes you on like a very It's a similar style of like ramp up, but it ramps, the consistency is a bit better, I think. Apart from this one, which is like, I don't like that much, but I think people like, I could be convinced to put it here, basically. That's my explanation on that one. But now we get to move on to V3, which I've basically just played. This one I don't know if I even need the recaps for, to be honest with you. But because I just literally, it's been like a week and I should remember it. Anyway, 3-1. This I think is the best that the game. Can I? Thank you. Like this. This case is perhaps the best that the game has ever been. It's like, it's grounded, it's perfectly encapsulated. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense when it happens, and it gets better as the game reveals more about what happened retroactively. Like Kaede being the quote-unquote murderer, wanting to find the mastermind. And then everything that I had a question about. Why did Rantaro do that? He was a survivor of the previous game because of, what's been happening in the outside world. That was his reward. Why was it really possible that all this elaborate, like, Rube Goldberg machine caused the shoppable to kill him? Was it possible? Yes. Did it actually happen? No, it missed. It didn't actually hit him. The killing was done by the mastermind, etc., etc. It's so good that the questions that it leaves me with, and the like flaws, it answers its own flaws in a way that no other, like, if I'm blinded by aura farming and cool factor, then this is better. But if I'm looking at this with a clear head like I am, 3-1 is just perfect. Like, you get introduced to your main characters, all of the other characters as well, and then this is the beginning of Shuichi, like, reckoning with looking for the truth despite, not wanting to, see what it really is behind the curtain, so to speak, right? Being brave enough to seek the truth in spite of what you may discover, which is sort of the entire through line of the game, right? And why, and the first blood perk, which I literally forgot about until I checked it now. Why was it not important? She didn't actually want to graduate, right? She wanted to kill the mastermind, etc., etc., right? And then the motive videos, I think this one, I'll be convinced, I'll put it in great, because I think it works very well. This is where, in the magic trick, Ryoma gets eaten. So in this one, this is the motive videos, right? Everyone receives motive videos. Most of them are like swapped around, but Kirumi, the maid who is the prime minister, receives the video, which tells her that she is the maid and the prime minister also, and reveals that the nation is all fucked up and she needs to get out there and fix the country, which is what she was hired to do in the first place. And also, Ryoma gets his video and is looking for a reason to live, and just after getting a bit of hope and belief, but after seeing us sort of strive for truth, he gets his video and realizes he had nothing to live for, and basically is like, kill me. And so she obliges, in a manner of speaking, right? And we end up figuring out it's her. And again, this is why it's great. Otherwise, if this was like in the previous games, it would just be good. It's great because it continues the thematic through line of the game, which is my new phrase, by the way, through line. I don't even know if it's a phrase. Yes, it is. I'm surprised that I'm right about this. That, Saihara's quest for truth and, you know, what he finds, will it dissuade him from continuing? That kind of thing, right? So there's this. I think the only reason it's not outstanding is because it's a little bit like, surprise, it's a bit out of nowhere, a little bit, right? Certainly the motives and everything, and sort of it all comes to a head at the very end as to why. But I think especially because the victim makes perfect sense, that I'm more forgiving for a sort of killer motive to be a little bit like, you know, after, rather than making a full sensible point, right? And I like it quite a bit. Now, the motive in this one, chapter 3, this is easily the worst. It may even be, I'm not gonna, you know, I think it may be the most disappointing I've ever most disappointed I've ever been in a Danganronpa case, because the game is so good up until this point, right? It literally starts with the best case of all time, and then follows it up with a pretty solid, pretty great case, and then it just shows me, like, what's worse is that there's so much potential with 2 victims, like usual, right? With the third case, 2 victim situation, and the whole religious like theming of Anji and starting the student council and saying we shouldn't go outside and destroying the flashback light and everything. Having the conclusion be, oh, it was just that Korekyo is crazy and has his sister inside of him and they love each other and they kill. Like, okay, I don't care. You know what I mean? It was very I don't care. It didn't follow up on any of the, you know, Saihara truth plot. It didn't follow up on basically anything at all. It was just nowhere. It was literally, I think, they must have written like the beginning and the end, and then thought, okay, how do we pad the stats on this? What do we do with the rest of these characters? Oh, we should make him kill them because, anyone have any ideas? He loves his sister and needs to kill 100 people. Bang. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Waste of time. Prevents this game from essentially being a masterpiece, in my opinion. It's like so close. If you literally remove this case, this game would be great. Anyway. Chapter 4. Oh yeah, this was like the resurrection motive as well, which is another bit of bogus. But I did believe him, honestly. I could have brought him back, because why not? Fuck it. Oh yeah, this is the virtual world chapter. I think it's, again, pretty great. Miyu wanting to kill Kokichi. Right? She learns about the outside world and the details of the Gopher project, and so does everyone else, wanting to kill Kokichi because he's a remnant of despair or whatever you want to call it, right? And the game within a game stuff is a lot of fun. I think Kokichi manipulating Gonta was done splendidly, in the sense that, like, it's the only way he could have been a good character, and they did it. Him being manipulated. They actually, like, saved Gonta by having him constantly be toyed with, rather than bumbling around like an idiot like Nekomaru was, or being really annoying like a lot of the characters are in the first game. He actually, like, by being like a innocent yet driven kind of like idiot, he gets taken advantage of by Oma, and it leads to this kind of situation, right? And I think this is where, like, the full heel turn for Kokichi to get it absolutely twisted, right, is very satisfying. Honestly, I'm tempted to put it up here. I may do it. I may do it. I think it's very good. It's looking quite top heavy here, but I do think a lot of these are just very good cases. There's some. I mean, I guess I like the game more than I thought, huh? But this is, you know what? It's better than 2-2. 1-5 maybe a little high here. No, I don't think it is, because I think the trust and like connection with each other puts it pretty well. But 3-4 is again like very, very good. It's mostly Kokichi that carries this whole thing by trying to be insidious, by making us suspect everyone, especially him, by essentially like, but because Miu was ostensibly trying to kill him, the intended victim becomes like the perpetrator in this situation. So I think it all works out very nicely. I think 3-5 is also just incredible, right? Actually, you know what? The ending of this game just overall is so good now that I think about it. But if I'm gonna be this top heavy, I think I may have to demote some. I think 2-2 has to go down. I hate to say it, especially because it sort of gets worse when you realize nothing matters rather than better. Yeah, that's rough. That's rough. Sorry, buddy, you got demoted. Nearly had a, what do you call it? Non-5 and 6 up here, but I guess 4 is up here. But these are everything about the end of this game is incredible, especially like the twist and everything. I'm having trouble like enunciating what I specifically mean, I suppose. But I suppose my primary point in this one, the back and forth, and this also gets back to us doubting in truth, right? In 3-4, everybody is like, how could it be Gonta? How could it be Gonta? And we have to be like, no, we have to explore all the possibilities no matter what. And it turns out that is the case, right? And then in 3-5, even Maki stops believing in us for a while because she was involved partially, and she doesn't want to believe that Kaito could still be alive, right? That's a part of it. But we also have to look at it ourselves a bit clearly. Saihara has to be like, I'm a bit hopeful as well. I'm driven by belief rather than being calmly analytical of the facts. He reassesses what's apparent, right? Realizes all of that. This is also the culmination of Kokichi's entire plan, right? And I think, well, also this is the chapter that ends with Kibo like suiting up and blowing shit up, right? Something like this. And so Kokichi basically playing everybody, saying he's the mastermind, to literally just to fuck with everyone, essentially speaking, right? Is also very fun. Trying to create, he does a Nagito here by making a trial that Monokuma couldn't figure out, trying to game the system, but it had a flaw because, as Kaito sort of hinted at, like, if Monokuma figured it out and we all got it wrong, we would all die anyway. So he was like, because I'm dying from my illness regardless, I'm gonna go out so that we don't have to risk anything. Like, you know, that's also a very perfect way to end it all. It was a plan that didn't work, but that was so close to working. And I think, you know, if we compare Nagito to Kokichi is, I think, better because I think he sort of approaches it from literally a pure chaos perspective. Nagito has an agenda, but I like Nagito's agenda more. But anyway, we'll get to the character one after this, so don't worry about that. It's better than this one. I think it's not as good as Nagito's like masterpiece, and 1-6 is, in terms of just lore and the world, is incredible as well. I think 3-6, I think I have to put it above. I mean, this ending, uncovering the game within a game, uncovering the fictionality or alleged fictionality, it's actually left ambiguous at the very end of Danganronpa, discovering that it was actually Tsumugi, redoing 3-1 is just a great bit. I think it may be, is it better than the first game's ending? I have trouble deciding this. It may be something like this, to be honest with you. I mean, let me dwell on it all. I actually think it might be. This is close. It's literally mood dependent whether I put this one or this one better. But I think what brings this to the top for me is the meta narrative, and I think you could arguably put these two like alternating. But I think in terms of having this be first, it makes it better because it's so hard to make the first trial so good. It's kind of like 4-1 Ace Attorney, which is also very good. Like for basically a tutorial case, all things considered, to be so intertwined in the story of the game is like an incredible feat. I think if I'm being honest, it's something like this. No, I love Byakuya too much. I have to keep it here. But I think 3-6, it's like a meta farewell to the Danganronpa franchise. It's a commentary on the creation of the games themselves and how you perceive the series. It has how to actually lose hope and regain it. It has a little bit of that glitchiness, meta breaking stuff that 2-6 is full of because of its, nature, right? And I think it does such a good job as well, and it literally rejects the message of the game and the game itself in a manner of speaking. And I can see why people might hate it, because if you come from 1 and 2 and you're expecting more expansion on the world of the game, and instead you basically get game destruction, right? The game says fuck you for caring about the game in a manner of speaking. It doesn't say that like literally, right? And also like it's a lot of commentary on like the power of what you take from fiction, what you keep from fiction, being influenced, the nature of reality, what you make of it. Everything about it, I think, is just top shelf, right? The idea that they are literally fictional characters in a real world. As people, they are not real. They don't have backstory. They don't have family anymore. They don't have friends. They can never go back. And everything that they think they know is a lie. And yet, how do you still, how do you find meaning? How do you live a meaningful life? How do you want to live in that kind of state, right? After you learn that about you and the people around you, it would be like if you look back at your entire life and somebody just showed you irrevocable proof of the fact that somebody was manipulating every single one of your decisions. If you were being Truman showed, essentially, that's what this is, right? Truman showing somebody. That, what do you do after that point? How do you still have the courage to move forwards? And also, what this does sort of do, and what this does do that Truman Show sort of doesn't do, not that it's criticism of the Truman Show, which I think is basically a perfect movie, but the like attempting to change the world itself, and like the sort of a bit of world building it does about like keeping the populace docile by having this be the only form of entertainment. Basically, the killer, it's like the Hunger Games, Brave New World mixed situation. I don't know. I'm forgetting Brave New World. It's been a while since I read that book. But you get what I'm trying to say here, and that's why I think I love it so much. But it's hard to beat this because I think, like, this is a little bit, like, contentious and you have to really dig deep into it. But this is, like, on the face of it, anybody could play this and it, like really connect with the way it pans out, and it sets your don't go down there, buddy. It sets the theming for the entire game about the truth and the nature of it, which both of the other games, I think they tell their own little like story and they're more focused on the world of the game. But the V3 is truly like, it has a, I'm sure the others also do, but it has like a clear underlying and maintained message about what it's like, what it says and what it tries to say. And I think it's really like, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, as much as I am also a sucker for like glitchy effects and game within a game and meta narrative type of shit. I think this is my final take, and I think this sort of reveals that I think if my ranking is probably 3, 1, 2, as much as like, and I thought it wouldn't be the case that V2, Goodbye Despair or whatever, would be the worst of the 3, but it's really only the fault of the beginning sections of the game. If they had the like, so they just can't write a third case. Third case syndrome is Danganronpa's true curse. They don't know how to do a third case properly. The double kills never work. They're never interesting in a way that appeals to me. Like, at best, she did it for the money. At worst, it's a waste of everyone's time. Especially a waste because like Korekyo, Anji, and Tenko are all somewhat interesting characters in their own ways. Tenko especially, and like they kind of wasted them, which sucks more because the characters in the third game are on average a lot better. But anyway, that's my tier list, and I mean from this you can sort of tell where I'm at. I'll do a little screenshot up. And slash marker, like, comment, subscribe, put it in the comments below what you think, whether I'm tripping, yell at me for taking so long on a simple tier list. Anyway, see you next time for the character tier list, which should be coming out 24 hours from now on YouTube. 23, because it took an hour for you to watch this. See ya.